In this video, I'm going to cut over to an interview that I did recently with a gent named Lewis Schenk, who runs a PR agency here on the Gold Coast. I've actually been doing some work with him to get booked on podcasts, help get the brand out to more people and talk about what we do. And he invited me to join him for a chat about business, about life, about what we're doing, about our unique approach and the model that we help our clients with, and a bunch of other stuff. So we're going to cut over to that. You can watch the full interview, and I know you're going to get a lot out of it. So sit back, grab a coffee, grab a glass of wine, grab a beer, whatever you prefer, and enjoy.
Hi guys, today I'm here with Jacob Caris. Jacob has a very interesting and unique business, which I really want to kind of unpack here in this conversation. But maybe before we get into that, tell us a little bit about, how you sort of got to where you are today and, discovered what you do now.
Sure, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Looking forward to diving in. Yeah, so I've kind of done a little bit of everything over the last couple of years, but if we go right back, I was in corporate finance game for quite a few years. I'm an accountant by trade, which is very different to what I do now with marketing, like other side of the brain. But I did a somewhat interesting form of accounting. We did like turnarounds of big businesses, did a couple of years in New York and restructured bankruptcy bound companies and helped some emerge from bankruptcy, like companies doing 500 million a year plus in revenue. And while I was over there, I decided that I kind of wanted to do something a little bit different with my life when I was coming back to Australia. Kind of in that phase where, didn't have kids, didn't have a mortgage. It's like life doesn't get less complicated. Now is the time to give it a go. The other thing was like doing that over there and then coming back to Australia and doing the same things, like going from playing for Australia in cricket to playing backyard cricket. Like It's just a different ball game. So wanted to take a new path and started reading some books, and I think I bought a Tony Robbins book and bought a book by Jeff Walker, and then ended up in the kind of internet marketing circles and fell into affiliate marketing, which is a business model that a lot of businesses use, probably more than most people realize. And it's a really cool avenue to kind of get your feet wet in terms of trying to come online, because you only really need to worry about, well, can I get eyeballs to a product, and then they deal with the rest. And I was so busy with work that I was doing 80 hours plus a week. That made sense to me at that point in time. I could get a link, and then I was like, right, if I can get some traffic to this thing, maybe I can make it work. And the first thing I sold was a book, and I made $1. I was like, shit.
It's that first dollar though, man. I'm telling you, it changes your paradigm forever.
Yeah, I saw it in the little screenshot thing. It was this orange bar, and I was like, oh my God, it's like the internet money, And then that kind of hooked me in, and went down the affiliate rabbit hole pretty deep over the next couple of years. That's what allowed me to kind of get out of corporate in 2018. Did some big promotions with the guys at ClickFunnels, Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, a couple of other companies, and did that for a few years. And over those it's a competitive space. It's a very competitive space. There's a lot of people that want to do it, but the success rates are not high. Because if you think about, you've got one product and you've got potentially thousands, tens of thousands of people trying to sell the exact same thing. It's like people think their niche is competitive. Try sell the exact same product as 10,000 other people. And so because I did quite well, the demand for how I was doing it and what I was doing accumulated relatively quickly. And I had a little Facebook group where I was kind of documenting, wasn't really selling, I was just documenting what I was doing from the first 10 grand onwards. I'd run home in my lunch break from the office with my suit on and do a live and kind of talk about what I was doing.
That's the grind right there.
That was the grind. And I was getting 3-4 hours sleep a night. It ended kind of messily because I got home one night and my blood pressure was 180 on 120. I just hadn't been sleeping enough and eating like shit. That's what ultimately got me to quit work. And so I did that for a few years, and then the demand really built up and had a lot of people asking me what I was doing and how I was doing it. So I teamed up with a couple of guys and we built a course and coaching program in that space, which took off. It was kind of the classic new opportunity for people. We're doing things in quite a different way, and we went the other way. Most of that, the problem with that industry is everyone's make $1 million in 3 seconds. And it's just not, it's hard. It is a grind. And so I came in with that messaging and I was like, look, this is going to suck. I promise you this will suck. That's what I can guarantee. But if you push through, there's a really cool experience on the other side of it. And so I think that refreshingly raw and honest messaging really struck a chord, especially in an industry where people just don't share that reality.
Correct. I think there's a huge gap, and your marketing stands out to me because it is very transparent and authentic, right? When everyone's saying, get 1 million appointments in the next 90 days or I'll give you $1,000 for wasting your time. When someone comes in with a completely different approach, it's observe the masses and do the opposite, which I 100% agree. But just to wind it back a sec.
Yeah.
How did you get so good at getting the traffic? Like, what made you good compared to everyone else? And like, what methods were they?
I tried everything really quickly.
Right.
Like I pumped money into paying people to teach me any opportunity that came up, because it's such a simple concept. It's like, I just got this link. All I have to do is get eyeballs to it. It's fundamentally simple. It's just not easy. And so over the space of 18 months, I tried every possible angle. I tried the organic thing on Facebook. I tried blogging. I did Google ads. I did Facebook ads. I did the email list solo ads. Like I just did everything to find a way to get eyeballs, and kind of eventually figured out what worked and what didn't work, and went from there.
Nice, man. Nice.
Yeah.
What was there one thing that was like the most successful out of everything? Because I know if you can let me disclose this, but like, you know, you had a pretty big day. I remember one day.
Yeah. So I guess the Facebook in a couple of different ways, and Google ads were like the two big ones. The Google ads one was a little bit trickier for a couple of reasons. So Facebook was one that was more like replicatable, both for me and for other people. And the day you're referring to was a launch with Tony Robbins and Russell Brunson, and they released a product in 2019 called the Knowledge Business Blueprint, and that was a combination of done organically and with paid ads. And I did 120 grand in commissions in a day.
Wow.
US.
Was that life changing at the time? Like,
it's funny looking back. Like, yeah, it was. I mean, obviously the career I was in before, I made good money.
Yeah.
Like in the States, I was making like 200 and something a year, but I had no life.
were you getting taxed on that?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think my US tax rate 35% or whatever. Not as bad as here, but yeah, normal salary taxes. But so it wasn't like I was, one of these stories you hear online about I was making 20 grand and then all of a sudden I was making millions. Like I was earning a good salary. So I don't have that like rags to riches story that a lot of people do online. But yeah, I mean, anybody seeing that kind of money come in one hit, like you very rarely get paid 100 grand in a day. There's very few people that and it was crazy because what happened was they did the launch. It was a live webinar type situation, and the affiliates were just pumping traffic to register for this event. And so I got 10, 15, 20,000 registrants over the space of like a month in the lead up to it. We can dive into that further if you want to, but I basically pumped a ton of money into ads with no return for like a month because it wasn't until this live event thing kicked off. And they did the presentation. What could go wrong went wrong. Like the price reveal popped up way too early, and there were tech issues and blah 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 blah. And here's me with like, I think I had like 30 grand in ads sunk into it.
Oh my God.
Like I went hard and fully out of my control. Probably a bit stupid in hindsight, but I was like, it's not like I've got a bit of money, so if I lose 30 grand, I lose 30 grand. It would have hurt, but it wouldn't have broken me. It was one of those situations. And what happened though, they kind of made the product live and the cart broke.
Oh my God.
And they said they had like every backup, and it kind of just ended. And then me and like this other guy that I'd been kind of talking to throughout the whole launch, we were like, so what happened? We're like refreshing the affiliate dashboard. There's nothing there. We didn't hear anything. Eventually Dean Graziosi went live in the affiliate group and he's like, don't stress. It's done amazing. We just broke Infusionsoft. And it took a couple of days, but then it was like 3-4 o'clock in the morning. And this dude calls me. He was in the UK. And he's like, dude, refresh your account. And so I'm like, groggy. I actually flipped my sleeping pattern for that month because it was on obviously a US time zone. So I was working at night and then just sleeping during the day. I'm like refreshing it. And it's like 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand, 60. It was like, it was like winning the lotto.
Was it more than you thought you would have done?
Yeah.
Did you have like a ballpark that you were kind of estimating?
Well, after the live, I just wanted to break even. Right. I was like, I just want my money back.
Like, fuck, I'm just sunk there.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I was hoping maybe I could double my money. Was like, I would have been like stoked with that. But yeah, it went ballistic.
Crazy, man. That's a hell of a day. And yeah, like you said, not many people would get to experience making $100,000 in a day. And even though that wasn't life changing, I feel like if that was me, it just would have been a huge paradigm shift. It's like, oh my God, this is possible. And I think, back to the first dollar thing, I remember, I'll never forget my first sale that I ever made in business, because it's a moment where it actually just validates everything. Because until then, you're like, oh, this isn't real. You can't actually do it. You hear all these people doing it. Then you do it. You're like, holy shit, it's actually possible, which is, it's crazy. But now you're obviously doing something very different, which I'm really fascinated by. It's kind of, for lack of a better term, the one sort of person business model, right? Tell us a little bit about that. No sales calls. Like, how does it all work?
Yeah. So the affiliate thing ultimately led to what I'm doing now in terms of, I created the affiliate offer to help people with their or get started in that space, and did that exclusively for like 18 months. We ran that program and it kind of quickly shot past $1 million mark and did really, really well. And that was like my gateway drug into, holy shit, you can take like what's between your ears, and if you know how to package it up, Russell has kind of coined the term, you're one funnel away. It's like you're one offer away. In business, you are one good offer away from like everything changing, you know? And that was such an epiphany for me. It was like, holy crap, we can just take some knowledge or experience or expertise or whatever. And there's so many like crazy nuanced and niche cases of it. I was like, this is really, really cool. And so went deep down that rabbit hole the last couple of years and experimented with a lot of different stuff around selling and packaging information. And where I really landed was helping folks who have some form of expertise. But I think the big problem in the coaching consulting world is, if you're anything like me, you didn't start this business to be chained to your desk all day. I used to do that. I would have just kept doing what I was doing. And so through some mentorship and through a lot of experimenting, we've kind of developed this model where a lot of people think in that game, if your offer's over like $2,000, if you've got a coaching program that's 5K, 10K, that you have to get on the phone to sell it. And it's just fundamentally not true. It's like this big myth. It's this big secret that people think it's crazy when I tell them. We've done up to 50 grand in one transaction without a call, just through the DMs. And we can dive into kind of how that works. But yeah, that's what we help people do now, is like, if you've got a 3K, 5K, 10K, 20K type offer, and you like the idea of being able to get clients without needing to spend 45 minutes, an hour on one strategy call, 2 strategy calls, and kind of look at that Christmas tree calendar is what I call it, you know, then that's what we do now. And it's been a ride to kind of build it, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think it's always cool to see like innovations on certain ways, because yeah, like everyone has that belief that you need a sales call to close a deal and all that stuff. But like what I think is the key to it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is all the content that you put out, right? It's your brand, because you build so much trust with people. You literally give them all the information they could ever need. You show them your clients. You're so transparent that it's like, you know, like I would go and sign up to a complete stranger if I'd seen all that content, right? Is that kind of the foundation of the whole thing?
Yeah, that's it exactly. So the way I kind of explain it to people is, in that type of business, in any type of business really, but particularly a coaching business, you've got 3 parts. You've got the marketing / like audience / traffic. You've got your sales process, and you've got your offer. And the typical way of selling coaching online these days is it's very sales process heavy. So it's like a little bit of content, slap together an offer, and pound the DMs and fill up your calendar. So that's the sales process, right? And it's fine and it works, but it's funny because people use the word leverage and they talk about leverage, and yet all the attention and energy is going on the one part of the process that lacks leverage, which is the only way you can get leverage is by hiring more people. And I don't really have interest in hiring a ton of people and kind of doing it that way. And so effectively, as you've said, is what we've done is we've repurposed, I guess, the energy or the focus from the sales process to the offer, and in a big way, the marketing on the front end. So it's really about where you focus your time and energy on the what you sell and the who you sell it to, and the communicating with them through the content, and less on pounding the DMs and the calls all day one by one.
Definitely, because every time, that's what I think is, it's not fundamentally wrong with businesses, but last week I actually went to this business group. It's called the Coraggio, right? And anyway, they were kind of explaining a bit about their business, and like, we want every single person that ever comes into our ecosystem to get their business to $5 million a year, because at $5 million a year, you can take home, you know, around 500 grand after tax, which is like, it's probably really true, because most traditional businesses have maybe like a 20% margin at the end of the day. But like with a business like yours, like obviously you have like ad spend and content costs, but like it's a relatively lean model, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, even with my business, it's like my sales guy's calendar's full. It's like, okay, well, fuck, I'm going to take on an extra, 5 to 10 grand a month in expenses to bring on someone else. And it always just brings on new challenges, which I'm not opposed to, but I think I'm very similar to you, I think, in terms of like the drive for being, a business owner, like having that freedom to, go and, for you, like chill out with your kid, for me, maybe go golf, go chill out with the friends, you know what I mean? And yeah, I think you got to kind of get really clear on what you want and then reverse engineer the business for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's pros and cons to everything, right? Like we started running some YouTube ads the other day, and I kind of put this messaging out there, and it's funny because it's so different to every other ad in the space, and it takes 10 minutes before the trolls and stuff come out in the comments. And someone's like, yeah, but you're going to lose so many conversions. And I'm like, sure, I'll happily lose those conversions, because if they need an hour of my time, or they need an hour on the phone to somebody that I'm paying, they're just not there yet, as far as I'm concerned. And that's fine. Like, I don't need the money right now, right? I don't need the money now. This business has served me well. We can wait. So go watch another YouTube video. Go follow my Instagram stories for another 3 weeks. Just do what you got to do until you don't need that hour. And then come to us and we'll send you a link and let's do it.
Yeah, it's like, rather than shorten the sales cycle, it's lengthening it, but it just... that's going to increase your conversions hugely.
Yeah, and the other thing is, everyone talks about like, attract dream clients and blah, 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 blah. And what nobody talks about is how dream clients for me starts when you sell and how you sell. Everyone thinks delivery is in isolation and sales is in isolation. Amazing delivery and really liking who you work with, I think starts with how you sell. Because if you sell to people prematurely, your deliveries, because they're just not ready. The stress is through the roof when you start. And it's like, if there's all these guys that are salespeople kind of promising the world and they're just getting people in who aren't there yet, be that emotionally, be that financially, like whatever. And then any wonder delivery's hard. Whereas when my guys come to me, they're 1,000% ready to go. In a lot of cases, I've pushed them away at least once and said, come back later or go watch this first, right? Instead of like trying to hammer them into a call. And so when they do arrive, it's very calm. And it's like, let's just take our time and build something properly.
Yeah, no, I like that. Do you ever like just jump on a conversation with someone if they want to have like a 5-minute chat, or is it not even like it's very strict, like not even?
Yeah, look, not often. But we do with some of our clients, if they're crafting a new offer, I'll encourage them to jump on a 10, 15-minute chat if they can, because you want to hear the questions that people are asking. So the way we do it is we kind of build the offer into a document that's 6 to 10 pages that they can send out. And that's got everything in it. It's got the goals, the deliverables, the investment, the risk reversal guarantee, if there's a guarantee, all that kind of jazz. And so we'll still get them to send that out. But then with the first few people, we'll get them to jump on calls for 10, 15 minutes to see what questions they're asking, having read that offer, and what objections they're putting up. Because when we hear those, then we can feed the answers to those questions back into the content, and we can also tighten up the offer to address them before they come up. So initially, yes, but ideally we get it to the point where the document kind of does it for us.
And this document is just like pretty much everything you'd need to sell. And
it's what you do on a strategy session. It's just condensed down into a document. And this is the crazy part to me. I'm like, well, why explain everything one by one when you can kind of just like write it down and they can read it. And if they can't make a decision off the back of that, they can send some questions over text. That's fine. If they can't make a decision off the back of that, then let's just not do it yet.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Do you think like in terms of that business, like what do you think is like the biggest limitation that, because for me, I always think my ideal business doesn't require my time at all. Right. But obviously for that, you need staff. So like for your business, what's the sort of limitations in terms of like how many people you could take on or how big you could grow it? Or do you just have aspirations just to keep it at like a certain level?
Yeah, look, this is the current structure of it is me consulting. So there's natural kind of limitations in terms of, I'm the face of it and therefore I'm kind of part of the product. You could outsource, like I do the quote unquote selling at the moment, the very arduous activity of sending a link. That could easily be outsourced for a commission, which we'll probably do at some point. I could bring on like a client success manager, if you will. But I think one of the problems with a lot of the coaching industry is they pack out their calendar with calls and they got no time to actually deliver on the shit that they've sold. Right. And so then they have to go and hire a delivery team, and then their costs go up, which means that they need to take on more clients, which means they need more calls, which means they get busier, which means that, it's like this kind of negative spiral. And so because I've got the time to work with them, there's a lot more capacity. But for me, this type of business, I don't really have designs on it being bigger than 1 to 2 million a year. Could it be? Probably. But then I think it kind of changes complexion. As I think about it, I was saying, I used to work in corporate and I worked in consulting, and you've got two different types of like consulting or advisory businesses. You've got like your big four shops, like your Deloittes, your EY, your KPMG, who employ, tens of thousands of people. And then you've got like your little family offices. And I always worked for more the boutique consulting firms, and there was like 30 to 50 staff, and they were really, really good at specific things, and they had really strong relationships with their clients that fed them work. And people would bring their family in on a Friday afternoon, and there was always like sit around and watch the rugby and like have drinks and whatever. It was just a really good vibe. And so I think about my online business more like those practices, whereas I think if you want to kind of quote unquote scale kind of like infinitely, you're looking at more of like the big box type structure.
It's funny, man, because literally I was sitting in this seat a couple of weeks ago. I said this thing, and I actually got a lot of people giving me hate comments for this on YouTube. But I said something like, I'd rather have like a small team of killers, like 6 Navy SEALs, than like 100 frontline soldiers, right? And it's kind of similar, right? Like all these people at Deloitte, EY, like they're graduates from uni, they don't really know that much, versus like the boutique thing that you could, have really, really good people, build closer relationships with these clients, and keep them for a long time. I think, I really like that approach. I definitely agree.
And it flows through to the client relationships. Like I've got clients that have been with me for 3 years in the online coach. That's unheard of. right? I'm flying out to New York next week. I'm meeting up with a bunch of them, and like 3 years in this industry is like an eternity.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It just doesn't happen. But that's because of how it's structured.
Because I think back to what you said, like all these people who scale these coaching offers to like $1 million plus a month.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I feel like when you get to a certain point in that space, there's always going to be some kind of like negativity, like, you know, the Reddit threads and stuff like that. But there is a lot of sentiment because they promise so much on the front end, which is really quite unrealistic for most people. And then on the back end, it's like NDAs and all this shit so that people don't speak out about it, which is, it's kind of sad to me because I think, you know, people do have, you know, the ability to do these things, but when they're sold that it's really easy that, you know, you can make all the money you want in the next 90 days, it's just bullshit, right? Like it's really not true. To build something, you have to actually take time, effort, and energy. And so, yeah, I think the problem with those bigger coaching offers is, like you said, like they have all this all this energy in the sales and marketing, but like a lack in the fulfillment.
Yeah. And I think what naturally has to happen when you're dealing with those types of numbers and that much volume is that it has to be a somewhat cookie cutter solution, which I think creates problems in itself because you can't put 1,000 people through individual bespoke paths, right? It's impossible.
Yeah.
Whereas when you keep the volume a little bit lower, I do the kickoff call with everybody right now. And so I can channel all my experience into going, well, I think this is the path that we need to take. And so you should pay attention to sections 1, 3, and 6. Right. And we can tailor it. Wait on this, start on this, don't do that at all, as opposed to every person going through the exact same, because every individual is different and every business is different.
Correct.
Yeah.
100%. Random question. Have you ever calculated your cost of ideal lifestyle?
I feel like Leona and I might have gone through that exercise once, but what the number came to, I couldn't tell you.
It just reminded me of that because, you know, when you think of getting rich, people think you need to have hundreds of millions of dollars to get all this crazy stuff. But like when you actually break down how much things cost, and like if you broke it down on a monthly basis, you could literally live an insane life for like 150, 200 grand spent in a year.
Yep.
Right. You want to get to like, you know, multiple supercars and stuff. You could do for like, you know, $500,000 to $1 million a year. And so I think, you know, calculating that cost of ideal lifestyle, I was just wondering if you'd factored that into like building this business, because it's like, you know, you make really good money, but you don't need to have this ridiculous amount to sustain a lifestyle.
Yeah, I think the reason I've kind of landed on this business, another reason I've landed on this business model too, is I've got kind of aspirations to do things offline as well. And so I don't necessarily want to build this gigantic thing online that would mean I don't have any capacity to do that. The good thing is the margins, as you said. So this can kind of be the cash cow to fuel investments, to fuel other projects. But you're totally right. Like, you know, we both live near the beach, right? You buy a car, pay cash. The stress is very low. It's very, very low. It's a good existence without it being crazy.
100%. I think it's every time, I think the Gold Coast is probably like the best place to live, just whether you're an entrepreneur or whatever, because it's hard to be in a bad mood here, really. Like in a bad mood, you just go out to the beach. I know it's fucking raining today, but it's such an amazing place just to, build and create from, I feel.
Yeah, it is. I lived in the States. I lived in New York. That was a lot of fun. And then I came back, was in Brisbane for a bit. But yeah, the Gold Coast can't see myself leaving.
Yeah, I lived in Kansas for 2 years, and no disrespect to any of my Kansas friends if you see this, but I see videos and stories from there now. I'm like, oh my God, like I could not comprehend living there. It was really fun at the time because I was in college, like, you know, having a lot of fun, but like living there, like as an adult and like living life there, like I can't imagine. I think they're really sheltered from the rest of the world there. So they think, oh, it's actually, you know, really nice here. But when they came to a place like this, like this is literally fucking heaven on earth. Like it is completely
We're very
different.
lucky on the Gold Coast. Very lucky. I did 6 months in Kansas as well.
I think you told me that, yeah. It's definitely a different world. But what's the sort of projects that you're looking at, like offline eventually?
I like my wine. I like my nice wine. So definitely something in that industry. Although every person, I've got like no hospitality experience. So very naive.
I worked in a cafe for 7 years, so I can give you some pointers
there we
on
go,
carrying
mate.
glass.
We're halfway there. Everyone I talk to is like, if you want to make money, don't go into wine. So I don't know, maybe like a little wine bar. There's
nice.
opportunity for that on the coast. Whether that evolves into, you know, trying to get involved in the supply chain further down the line in some way, maybe. One of my, like, I've said this since I was a kid. I'm a mad Bulldogs fan, AFL, and one of my like big goals has always been to be on the board.
Oh, nice.
Or if possible, president. I'm like a fifth generation supporter,
right?
And like I was the kid that like, you know, cried when they lost, like just obsessed. And so that's like the long term goal.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think, was it 2018 you guys won the first one? 2016.
Yeah.
It was before Richmond won in 2017.
That's correct.
Yeah, shit. That was a crazy time, man. Because I think for both of us, we hadn't had a flag in a long time. I remember going down to, I can't remember the street in Richmond. It's like the main road where all the bars are. And like, mate, that place was mayhem. Like even though I don't like to live viscerally through that stuff. And like, I don't need football and stuff to make me happy, but man, it's crazy when your team wins.
Yeah.
It's just euphoric.
Yeah,
I can't imagine being in the team.
Oh, dude, it'd be out of control. Yeah, I was living in the States at the time, and it's so funny because my sister was getting married, and it was early that year, early 2016, and she's like, "Oh, I'm getting married on the 1st of October. It's a Saturday," and I'm like, "No, you're not."
Oh,
she's
shit.
like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because the grand final's on." She's like, "Mate, it's been the last one they won was 1954." And she's like, there's no chance. I'm like, you watch Murphy's Law. If you book your wedding on that day, that will be in the grand final. And so I made her move it. I made her move it to the Friday. And lo and behold, so we got home at like 4 a.m. from the wedding, Mum and I, and flew down at like 7 o'clock the next morning. So hungover.
To Melbourne?
To Melbourne.
Oh, did you get tickets to the gym?
Yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God, that would have been something
I
else.
just got back from the States for a couple of weeks for my sister's wedding. And on like 3 hours sleep, went to the game, and it's kind of a blur, but it was unbelievable.
That would have been incredible. I actually have a selfish question just to go backtrack a second. How could you implement something like your sales process into like an agency business model, for example, that's not so consulting focused?
Worked with a lot of I've worked with some agencies that want to bolt on consulting as like an additional income stream. So it's not something I've put a lot of thought into because I try not to split my, focus between different buckets. But if I think about I've engaged you to do stuff for me. If I think about that dynamic, like we had a call, but we could have very easily just spoke on Instagram, right? Like I could have very easily pinged you a DM. I think I did ping you a DM. I pinged someone a DM. I got in touch somehow. Email.
Yeah, email.
Yeah, I got in touch because you emailed one of my mates, and then he mentioned it. I think when you sent the email, we were like having a beer, and he's like, "Oh, look at this," because we're talking about podcasting. So the natural reaction to me sending that email is, "All right, well, let's get on the phone," right? But your sales guy could easily just go, "Well, let's just have a quick chat on the DMs." If you're doing the real high end stuff and it's like about tailoring packages and all that kind of stuff, maybe it's worth doing it there. But if it's a cookie cutter like 3K bundle of podcast bookings and this many articles and whatever, they could very easily do that over chat and go, "So Bob, tell me what you're trying to accomplish." Right? "Well, I want to get more reach. I want to drive this traffic here. We've got this product. Sweet. What's your budget?" Probably looking at 2 to 5K. Leave it with me. Fire them over. This is what we'd recommend, and then that's it. Like it wouldn't need to be more complicated than that.
I have considered doing like similar sort of ads where you just sort of run it to a profile ad and just say like, "Hey, if you're interested in this kind of thing, just send us a DM."
Yep.
Because I think it could be closed over DM, especially lower ticket stuff. Yeah, it's definitely worth considering.
I think in the agency space, like for example, one of the reasons that I wanted to, connect with you guys was because of the local factor, right? And so I think if you were to try and deploy it more globally, you'd really need a kind of a point of difference in terms of the attraction, like really strong case studies, really strong word of mouth, a slightly different process. Like I remember I got, and I don't know if you guys do this or not, but I remember I got an email from someone that said like the big objection with taking on an agency to help you with content, not necessarily getting booked on podcasts, but like it's the time input to create videos or whatever. Let's take a YouTube agency. I've still got to sit down and create all the videos, and that's typically people's objection. Like, I just don't have the time for it. And so their offer was like, "We'll interview you, right? We'll interview you. We'll bring the questions. You just show up and just answer the questions, and then everything else will be done for you." And so they've addressed the big objection in the offer. And so I think something unique that's a little bit different would go a long way in an industry if you're kind of otherwise doing the same thing. But having a personal brand that sits in front of the agency where people can really resonate with the person, that would help really well. Maybe a combination of those factors would make it a lot easier.
Yeah, nice, man, nice. Yeah, I definitely think more content, more nurture, and definitely innovating on the current processes because I mean, it's good, like don't get me wrong, but I think it's always cool to have different strategies you can, work in there. But man, to kind of like, I guess, wrap things up, like what would you say in terms of like everything that you've done? Like if you could go back in time and like give yourself some advice, whether you were, let's say like maybe 15 years old, like what would you tell yourself?
See, it's so hard because I don't like to say I'd change things. My mentality, which ultimately, as I said, ran me into the ground and made me sick, but it also got me to where I am, was that I can just outwork everyone. Back then, like that was my jam, was outwork everybody. And so it probably wouldn't be anything around don't work as hard, but probably like slow down and enjoy it a bit more. I worked a lot in my 20s and I don't regret that because it got me to where I am now. But you're only 21s, right? And it's a really cool part of your life. So that would probably be one thing in terms of like what would I don't even know if I'd change it, but it's like a tackle it with this perspective. I think when I look at the business, maybe not going back to being 15 years old, but if there was a way that I could have started a personal brand earlier, like I couldn't do it with the corporate thing.
Yeah, if you just start creating content,
like I did a lot of other, I actually started online in like 2011. I bought a website and was like dabbling, and I just like if I'd had the ability to start a personal brand sooner. So anyone watching that's on the fence and hasn't, like if you do it and you do it well, it is a license to print cash.
Do you know, have you heard of Good, the golf? It's like golf YouTuber started by this guy, Garrett. So he was like the OG golf content creator. Like he'd been creating these trick shots for like 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And like their business now would be doing at minimum $1 million a month. Like I would say it'd be like, you know, probably $30+ million a year business with all the things they've got on. But yeah, it just started from him doing trick shots, documenting that. But he was just like early to it. And, you know, even though it might not seem early, I think it is still, you know, it's going to be around forever, right?
Yeah.
Like these things are so fucking addictive. It's like unbelievable. You think people are going to just stop scrolling and watching content? Like, no, I think it's,
I think the trap people fall into though is they go, all right, well, if you know, nothing's going to happen until I've got 200,000 followers. And that's just not the case either. Like my audience is tiny. It's like 20,000 people across all platforms. That's not even like on Insta. I've got like 1,800 followers on Instagram and we've turned that 20,000 into like millions and millions and millions of dollars. And so you don't have to just build a personal brand to become famous. You can pair branding and, I mean, this is controversial now with, you know, the Alex Hormozy advice of like just give and yeah, I don't know. That's a topic for another day. But you can have a small personal brand and monetize the hell out of it at the same time.
100%. Like I don't know the exact book, but it's called something like something to like 1,000. The concept is like
true fans.
Yeah, 1,000 true fans. Yeah. Like you'd rather have 1,000 true fans.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's all subjective. Some people would rather have 100,000 people that don't really care about them because they're just after the clout, right? But some people, I would genuinely rather have 1,000 people that were all, you know, wanting to pay me and have 100,000 people that would just be like, oh yeah, I like his video.
Yeah.
Right. Like you'd rather build that deeper connection. So I think, yeah, people get infatuated with the idea of having more and more, but it's definitely the quality. And back to what you said before about, you know, slowing down, like it's really hard to internalize as an entrepreneur, slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
Right. I did a lot of self-reflection when I was in Europe and I was like, I just observed myself on a day-to-day basis. I'm like laying on the beach in Portugal. I'm like, what do I do on a day-to-day? And I literally wake up, go straight to the coffee machine, go straight to my desk.
Yep.
Right. Nothing in between. Like no time. I got into the point where I wasn't even planning things out anymore. I was just like grind. I'm like, why the hell did you stop like actually planning? And so I think you can't see the full picture when you're inside the frame. So you really need to step out sometimes and be like, okay, cool. I should stop doing this. I should start doing this. I should spend, you know, rather than try and cram 10 things into a day thinking I'm being productive, just literally spend 6 hours on one thing.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's always just a learning game, but I think it's it's definitely powerful when you take that time to reflect and sit back.
The biggest like quote unquote kind of like goal setting or trick or hack or whatever for me, and I didn't realize this until after the event, is like going back to even high school. I did this and I just didn't realize it at the time, and I've since repeated it many times. Is I think a lot of the reason people like don't hit goals or targets or whatever is they don't have enough trust in themselves to hit it when they start it, and so they kind of half-ass it along the way. And for me, the thing that's constantly worked is one clear, tangible goal at a time. So like when I was an affiliate, it was like I picked an award that I wanted to win, right? And some people would be like, you know, it's materialistic or whatever. It worked for me. Picked it like a tangible thing, and I just don't stop until I accomplish that thing. And when you do that enough times, you start to develop such self-trust that when you pick something, it's inevitable. It's like, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And then to tie this into what you were just saying is when you know it's inevitable, that's when I think you can slow down because you know you're going to get that thing that you want, and then you can like build properly towards it, as opposed to this like highly anxious, I don't know if it'll happen type existence.
Yeah, it makes sense, man. You want to have that clarity, and it's definitely hard when you don't have any runs on the board, but when you can start to build that momentum, like I think at the start, man, you just have to go as hard as humanly possible. Then you get to a certain point where you do have some, you know, leverage where you can, you know, create that time to step back. But yeah, man, thank you so much for sharing all the insights. It was
fun.
Enjoyable.
It was good.
Where can people find you?
JacobCaris.com. That links off to everything, or you can go look on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, all the same name.
Amazing. Thanks for joining me.
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you.